Okay, it has been one whole year since the release of Dead Island 2, and as most know, a lot can happen in the span of just 1 year. I'm looking at you, Payday 3, and Starfield, but has a lot happened for Dead Island 2 is the question. Well, looking back a little bit, Dead Island 2 was actually one of the first games I ended up making a video on, being extremely excited for the game's release, and as some of you may remember, I loved the game immensely.
It's the best. I love it.
Even if it got some hate, I was just overall happy with the game, and I thought it was great. But now that a year has gone by, I just want to talk about everything we've seen, from DLC to the simple little bug fixes. You know, within a year, a lot can change. I loved Starfield. I really enjoyed Starfield, but looking at it now, it's kind of dead. I really enjoyed Payday 3, but looking at it now, it's really dead. So, with Dead Island 2, how is it? It's been a year, it's gotten some DLC, and I'm gonna start things off with how everything looks and feels, and if it's gotten any better. So spoilers now, no. Nothing has really gotten better or improved at all. Because things in Dead Island 2 were already pretty polished, and I'm pretty sure I said it was near perfect for a Dead Island sequel, and I still agree with that statement. That is not me saying that there weren't things that needed to be fixed. I mean, there has been 4 major patches fixing a lot, and the last being in January of this year. Now with those fixes to bugs, crashes, and the sorts, performance-wise, things are looking good. Now on the side of graphics and frame performance, that's where the game was already pristine to me. Like, hopping back in after a few months, I forgot how gobsmackingly beautiful Dead Island 2 is, even without the updates. Like, some locations are borderline photorealistic, reminding me a lot of games like Chernobylite's hyper-realistic graphics scheme. And as I said, they pair with some killer performance. I mean, since day one, it feels like this game could have ran on a potato with how many frames I was getting, and I had a 3050 at the time, running it at high settings, getting 140 frames. And if anything, things have only gotten better with the patches. But yeah, looking at how things are now, well, it's not like the performance was gonna get worse, or it shouldn't at least. I know some game updates do that. It's not like graphics are gonna get worse. Things only got a little bit better, and things were already good. Honestly, the big improvements we've seen come to certain broken missions, or as I've said 10 times, bugs. Other than that, though, there weren't a lot of improvements. But to me, that's because the game didn't need a lot of improvement. But, you know, without DLC, I just think Dead Island 2 was the good old Dead Island 2 that we had.
Same, but different. But still same.
And, you know, I at least love it. And speaking of DLC, that's kind of the big topic I want to talk about today, so I'm going to shift things over to the first major DLC we've seen. Yes, major. I'm not going to talk about all the microtransactions. That's the one side of Dead Island I haven't really liked, is the microtransactions, all the little outfits and stuff. We don't need that. We need real, solid DLC. So that's where I'm going to start with the first major DLC, HAUS. I think it's HAUS. HAUS. I don't know. So we've actually received the announced major DLCs, both of them, starting with HAUS, released back in October of last year, which I think is insane. Both DLCs are out. Where's the Starfield DLC?
Well, what are you waiting for?
I don't know. Something amazing, I guess.
Me too, kid.
I don't know. I'm upset with Starfield right now. I don't know why. But so right off the bat, I'll just say that HAUS, how do I say this? I'm gonna say it HAUS. Right off the bat, I'll say that HAUS brings in a whole lot of cool, trippy, messed up concepts and locations to the story. But there are also a couple of things I felt could have been done a little better. On the side of the content, like weapons and armor, HAUS brings in some new stuff like the crossbow, for example, but it doesn't bring anything too crazy or groundbreaking in. We still have the same weapons and everything, but we do get to slay in style like Daryl from The Walking Dead. Story-wise though, as I said, this is where the DLC shines. HAUS is just about one of the weirdest add-ons I've ever played through, for any game, mind you. Everything starts with you finding some sort of invitation, and upon opening it or reading it, you just find yourself waking up magically at the end of a long driveway in Malibu. The driveway leads to this large, lodge or mansion type building, and once entering, things get even weirder. There's gimp suits, talking heads, the back rooms, and a ruling dog AI. It's a whole bunch of weird gunk, but you are tasked with helping the remaining leaders of, well, it's pretty much a cult, but you travel through the building, or facility, compound, whatever it is, completing trials and uncovering secrets of the outbreak, actually. You have to put survivors back together. That makes no sense, but trust me, it will when you play it. You put survivors back together and bring order to HAUS, while falling through some trippy and impossible environments. But I'll let you all uncover that trip for yourself. One problem I did have with HAUS's story is how freaking short it was, or at least it felt. Because I mean, I was having fun, but then in what felt like an hour or two, the fun was over. But it is only DLC, I shouldn't expect a whole game, and I did pay $13, so I think it was worth the money. And as I said, I shouldn't expect a full-length game. And speaking of things that kind of left a sour taste in my mouth with HAUS, well, without a giant spoiler, I will just say that it goes all the way back to the beginning of the game with the plane crash and the player getting bit. I don't know, it seemed like it was rushed or maybe even an overthought plot point in the DLC story, but that was kind of all I disliked about the DLC. Moving back over to something I loved, and moving off of HAUS's story, I just really enjoyed all the environments and locations, especially when paired with those amazing Dead Island 2 graphics. Some areas look like you're traversing the back rooms, or some of the simulation rooms are pushing simulation. But then onto the zombies and enemies side of things, you know, we're still fighting the same zombies. There is one new type of zombie that like shoots thorns out of its stomach. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but the biggest change to enemies is that about 95% of the zombs are sporting some pretty interesting rubber gimp outfits, which honestly, I can't tell if the suits make the zombies more or less intimidating. But yeah, that's HAUS. It was a cheap, short, horridelic DLC. Which actually brings me to the next DLC, released just the other day as of writing this, on April 17th, and that is the SOLA DLC. So, the SOLA DLC, I'm gonna say now, is honestly probably my favorite of the two. Right off the bat, SOLA is so LA. Haha, get it? It's okay, I didn't either. But this DLC takes place in SOLA, a music festival right outside of Los Angeles, and the first thing that I notice is I enjoy the environment of this DLC too, and honestly, I enjoy it a lot more than HAUS. Not that HAUS's was bad or anything, I just love the beautiful open areas with the different unique stages and locations within the festival. It literally looks like a real music festival. The places like the Oasis Water Park or the nightclub and all the different stages, I don't know, I guess I just enjoyed this DLC's environments a little bit more. Aside from the environments and looks though, we get to see two new enemies, an intestine-slinging lady variant, pretty gross. She throws her intestines at you and she's kind of also a pain and she takes away your rage abilities, but then we also see some blob boy named the Dirge, which comes in at the end to be something bigger. But then on top of that, we even see some new weapons, two of which being a spinning saw blade bat and a saw blade launcher, both extremely good and extremely fun to play around with. And then, as I said, a couple of side uniques. And I don't know if it counts as a new weapon, but there are these new orgone ball things, which are like explosive balls of concentrated zombie music, which sounds confusing, but I don't know if that's a weapon. It's part of the story. But with all that said, what is SOLA about? Well, it all starts with you heading to the SOLA Music Festival, though I don't exactly know why. You just decide to go to a music festival. Once arriving though, someone tells you that it is not safe and your hero nerve kicks in and it's time to save someone. You meet Grace and learn that SOLA's beats are not only attracting the zombies, but turning people into them. So you have to go through the festival and its many stages, like musical performance stages, not like stages, you get it. But you even get a little in sync with the music, messing with your autophage. It's like a whole thing, but by the end of the DLC, your character is having to go through an almost psychedelic trip as what looks like a giant evil zombie music portal emerges from the sky and you have to silence the music.
Dr. Taramiracourt spoke to me, and he wants you to silence the music.
Dude,
But then you go through just about the worst boss fight I think I've ever had to endure in the past while, and yeah, it took me like 3 hours just to finish that boss fight, but by the end, you learn a little bit more about yourself and the whole zombie apocalypse thing, and then finishing the boss is also what unlocks the saw launcher from Grace, and you know, life in the apocalypse goes on. Yes, there is obviously more in between to uncover, but I will leave that all to you. Seeing as Sola is only $15, I think it is definitely worth the money. You get some new environments, new weapons, and a couple of more hours in Dead Island 2 story. And it's a good story. I think Sola's story is really good. But that is the Sola DLC, and I'm going to now move on to my final thoughts before wrapping this video up. So honestly, as I said, there's not a lot to say about Dead Island 2 in general. They got some updates, but I really enjoyed the game. I'm just kind of returning because of the DLC. I wanted to talk about 2 pretty good DLCs and pretty good price DLCs. It's been a while since we got real DLC where you pay $15, you get a couple hours of story and a couple new weapons, and that's that. You don't have to pay $5 every month for the new battle pass. I enjoy that. Now, I'm not going to talk about all the little microtransactions because that does kind of take away from, but we can ignore that for now. I think Dead Island 2 has had a pretty great year when looking at other games like Payday 3. You know, it was on the good side of 2023 games. I know a lot of people didn't really like it at release. I loved it, but a lot of people thought it wasn't the best. But I bet after seeing some of the other 2023 games, they take that back. I bet a lot of people say that it's good now. Now, aside from all that, I do also want to mention that Dead Island 2 is on Steam now. They just released it on Steam this month too, as of writing this at least, in April. But that also brings in a good amount of players. I think I saw a few thousand players on Steam, and there's probably still a good amount of people playing on Epic because it was released on Epic, and we don't know about consoles, but nevertheless, the DLCs were great. I think the Steam release is great for Dead Island 2, and I think it's good that they did end up releasing it on Steam, and now everyone can get the game now with the DLC, and they can get it nice and polished. They don't have to wait for the updates, but I loved Dead Island 2. I love Dead Island 2. This part of the video is not scripted, so I am rambling, and I think I am just going to wrap everything up there. But I do want to hear all of your thoughts on Dead Island 2, the DLCs, and this video in the comments now. And if you enjoyed this video, definitely slap it with a like and hit that subscribe to stay up to date on everything to come. And speaking of everything coming, if you want to support videos like this, get your name at the end of those videos and get those videos up to like 6 hours early, so why not? Check out a membership to the channel now by pressing that little join button below. And lastly, if you heard any music that you liked and you want to check out any more of my home cooked music, head over to Billy the Whip on any music platform now. And with this here, I thank you all so much for the support. It is insane. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you all for the viewing, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.
I don't care if you don't get it, cause it is what it is. Knocked down so many times and I'm sick of taking hits. Respect is earned, so you get what you give, so you